No, it's the League of Nations, the very failed thing that was created after World War I. But there are many countries in it that you might know about. America, Britain, France, Russia, everything else that's important. But there's something that people don't really focus on. A pretty medium-sized country that takes up a lot of Europe. Germany. What about Germany? Well, it's got a pretty good history. And we're going to be starting from the 19th century all the way to this century. So let's start. Now, as you guys know about Mr. Otto Van Bismarck. And Otto Van Bismarck did the usual things, like be a mayor, be the chancellor. But you see, at the time, Germany was not the Holy Roman Empire. Yet it was not the German Confederation. It was Prussia, this place, I guess there, some place over there. It was just really messy. And Bismarck was like, how about I reunite it? And he reunited and declared war on Austria and won. And then he declared war on France and won. Sorry, Napoleon III, you're definitely not the equal of your famous uncle, Napoleon Bonaparte. But here he dies, and he also made a very particular saying. One day, all of the world will break into chaos, into a war that will get rid of all the monarchs and kings and queens. And it will start by one stupid thing in the Balkans. At the date that he predicted it, an archduke was shot in the Balkans. And World War I breaks out because it's a giant pattern of dominoes. Okay, knock the Archduke Franz Ferdinand's domino. That knocks Serbia and Austria, and then finally knocks out war. War! Hooray! I don't like war, sadly. Now, what happens here is something known as weak emperors. It is something that has come up so many times in history. Go look at China. Go look at everywhere, I guess. Any place that actually had kings. Weak emperors. And for Germany at the time, there was one weak emperor. And this weak emperor had the name of Kaiser Wilhelm II. And he had the mental equivalent of a 3-year-old baby who's never ever heard of a mom before. Now, Kaiser Wilhelm, he wasn't actually really an emperor, I have to say. He was more of a puppet. He was traditionally in charge, but the person who was actually in charge was in charge of the military. Moltke II, not the good military commander from Bismarck's time, the terrible, idiotic military commander of World War I. And thanks to Moltke, they all lost. Moltke did this. Hopefully no other German world leader will ever do this. Who took over an entire country, maybe, I don't know. And, of course, Wilhelm was sent into exile down in Belgium. Ew, gross. Good thing Germany's not going to come back. Then, one day, a man with a weird mustache who had served in World War I was like, revolution, and then he got arrested. Imagine if he got into power. And then he got into power. Wait, what? Now, this guy's name was Adolf Hitler, and he started making reforms, like how to kill all the Jews, I guess. And everybody was like, how about let's kill all the Jews? And this was bad, and everybody hated it. But this was foreign issues. Who cares about that? We'll only care if he invades another country. He went into Austria. Well, he's not invading. Everybody likes him. Czechoslovakia. So Britain steps in and it's like, hey, don't do that. We'll give you that part of Czechoslovakia, but nothing else. You're not going to invade anything else. And Hitler was like, okay, I give myself permission to invade more of Europe. So he continues invading more of Europe, and Chamberlain Day was cancelled. So yeah, sadly. And of course, he invades Poland. The communists also invade Poland. Poland is wiped off the map for like the third time in history. And everybody's mad at Hitler and they declare war on him. And the Soviet Union is, like invaded and America joins in, and then everything else is invaded. All of Europe is invaded. But then something happens. It is something that continues to come up. They just think that they are invincible. You see, one weakness of world military powers is that once they win too much, they think that nothing can kill me. And the only thing that can kill Hitler is himself, so he commits suicide. Waltzig? You were wrong. Yes, some other German world leader was going to kill himself. Got it, Waltzig? Now, after this whole debacle, all of Germany is split in half. Hooray! Depression! And one side is controlled by the West, and the other side was controlled by the communists, Easterns, Russians, whatever you prefer, Soviet Unions. And one day, Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, was like, these Western imperialist ideas are coming into East Germany like it's West Germany. What should I do? I know! How about I stop all the imperialists from coming in anyways? And then somebody was like, but dude, aren't the people going to starve? And Stalin was like, dummy, I don't care if they starve. If I starve, then I'll stop, but I won't starve, so I'm just gonna starve everybody out, including you. So they cut off East Berlin from the rest of the world. And they fly the supplies in, so imperialist ideas are still coming in. And Stalin is like, oh crap, and then he dies of a brain hemorrhage. Partly because he arrested all of his best doctors, yeah. And then he was replaced by a man named Khrushchev, who hated him and wanted world peace, so he built a giant wall that split families in two. Not that happy of you, I guess. And the entire world is currently buried into the Cold War. And after a few debacles of people trying to break in, everybody about to destroy themselves with nuclear missiles in Cuba, one time where they drove a tank through the wall, the usual. Now, in the 1991, the Soviet Union fell. Now that was important for Germany, but let's go a bit forward, a bit earlier, like in the 80s, I guess, like in the time of the Vietnam and that stuff. I wonder what's going to happen. Now, at this time, there's been many protests by the German people. And the German television was like, fine, you guys can go through the wall. But something that they forgot to say was, in a few days. Now, they forgot to say that, so they immediately started pouring at the wall. And the border guards still had orders to shoot anybody who would come. But tell me, how are you supposed to kill and arrest thousands of Berliners who are armed with sledgehammers to break down the wall? So they're like, everybody can come in, okay? Don't kill us. So finally, the Berlin Wall is destroyed. Well, not literally. They just passed through. Except for the people who had sledgehammers, so they just took it and hit down the walls. And they burned down the walls. And a bit of the wall is now on display in the NATO headquarters. And now let's go to modern day. Not much is going on in Germany, actually. The usual. But then, you see, something happened, and it's called a border crisis in Ukraine and Russia. So America started moving troops into Germany to send to Ukraine. But that is a story for something that I already put on. It's going to be on the end screen, and I'll see you later.